the Cinema Judge!
Hello, and welcome to the Cinema Judge. To all my regulars out there, welcome back. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. To everybody out there, I hope my voice finds you well. Now, approaching the bench today, we have a Hulu film, and it is absolutely awesome. I haven't had a movie pull me in by my nose hairs like this in a long time. It's incredibly original, terrifying, drama, but so much emotion. And I kid you not, you don't get that a lot from horror films. And I am so bummed that this didn't get a theatrical release, because this movie deserves it. So if you don't have Hulu, I hope one day they release it on DVD or somewhere else so everybody has a chance to see this groundbreaking, amazing, emotional movie. Now, I'm going to read what they say about it, but then I'm going to say a little bit more about it. Here's a tagline. An exiled, anxiety-ridden homebody must battle an alien who's found its way into her home. That's a very simplistic way to put this film. There's so much more going on. This young woman lives in this house by herself. Her mother's passed away. She's very isolated. Everybody in town despises her. And I'm not going to tell you why, because how you find out is so well shot. It's so well created, crafted. Director Brian Duffield has done a magnificent job in this film. I can't say enough about it. And the performance by Kaitlyn Dever, who plays Brynn, the main character, is outstanding. I can't even explain what a great performance she puts in. Because in this movie, and this isn't the main part of the movie, but she does very little dialogue. I mean, very little. Even the whole movie, there's a minuscule of words. I mean, you hear her scream or panting or making noises of fear, but her being able to project all that without saying a word and trying to direct, edit, put it together a movie that's not centered around, not really dialogue, but the story itself just captivates you and just pulls you in. And it's amazingly well done. So if you do have a chance to see this movie, No One Will Save You, please do. Now here's the trick. In the trailer that I'm going to play for you, clearly there's no dialogue. But it gives you a tone. It gives you a feeling. Because what happens in this film is this. This girl, she's living in this house by herself. And then a home invasion happens. But the home invasion is from an alien. And then things go sideways from there. It is just so original. I love it. So when you hear this trailer, you're going to hear a lot of noises, her screaming maybe. But it'll really give you the feel, if you will. Anyway, enough of me babbling. Here's a trailer for No One Will Save You. Now, as you can clearly hear, there's a lot of great sound in this movie, and that's what sets this movie apart. Telling a story without many words. It's just feeling, sound, levels of sound. What they did in this film is really amazing. You really need to check it out. And I just love these kind of films where it takes a chance. It's a big risk. Because all that trailer, you don't know anything. But if you see the trailer, look it up online if you can, or any way you can, because the beginning, most of that trailer is about her waking up at night and then hearing noises. And she's walking through the house trying to figure out what's going on. And it just goes from there. Now, coming up next, we're going to have a little featurette for you. Now, in this featurette, you're going to hear from the director, you're going to hear from Kaitlyn Dever, and there's talk a little bit more about the story and everything else involved. And in these featurettes, you're going to hear a lot of background noise. You're going to hear scenes and everything else, because what they do in these little featurettes that they send me, they intertwine on the set footage and film footage. So that's what you're going to hear. And later on in the show, I'm going to give you a website to go to in case you want to watch this stuff, because a lot of times it's so much more rewarding to see the interviews and see the clips that I'm going to show you. And when the show does go online, I'm going to have several minutes of B-roll. And they really gave us some really nice B-roll of on the set, how they made this film. It really makes you feel like, wow, look at what they did. So here's a featurette for No One Will Save You.
No One Will Save You follows a young girl named Brynn who has a darker past. She is sort of deeply hated by the town that she lives in. She is secluded and she keeps to herself.
She built this bubble that she feels safe in. A few minutes into the movie, that bubble gets popped.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Brynn's an alien in her community. And then this other alien story happens on top of that.
And there's so many things I loved about playing this character. She has a major conflict. The emotions that she's going through, they were real to me. Brynn runs a lot in this movie. Brian said, I want you to run like Tom Cruise. And I thought I was a runner before this film. I am now.
We throw a couple of curveballs. It's a lot of fun.
Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, Brian Duffield. Now, you might wonder, what else has he done? Well, he's written a lot of stuff. I'm just give you a brief example. He wrote Love and Monsters, Underwater, and the Divergent series. That's just to name a few. But in this next interview, he talks about the story, and then also what's his style and what does he like to do. He talks about smushing different genres together, and that is very, very true. And then we're going to hear from Kaitlyn Dever. And you might ask, what has she been in? Booksmart. A lot of you have seen that. She was also in the TV show Justified. And if you've never seen Justified, incredible TV show. It's truly worth your time. They recently just made a sequel to it. But the very first one, if you've never seen it, do yourself a favor. It's an awesome series. And in this interview, she talks about a little bit more about her character. And then we go back to the director. And he talks about Brynn. But the important part is this, and he'll explain this a little bit more. Even though she's alone and isolated, she's not a downer. She's not like sitting there brooding. And you watch the film, she has her daily routine. She does art stuff. She does little dance things. So she's not like this person sitting in the dark room being, oh, poor, poor, pitiful me. Yes, she's not a fan of everybody hating her. But in her own little world, the world that she's created, that's her happy place, and she's content with that. And then we're going to have a clip for you. And again, this clip has no dialogue. But in this clip, it's that opening moment when the alien first comes into the house. She's in bed, you start hearing things, and then she goes to inspect. But then all the lights come on in the house, the TV goes on blaring, everything's lit up because these aliens have telekinesis issues. Did I say that word right? Even if I didn't. They have all these powers and they're just doing their stuff because they're trying to figure out what's going on here, who's here, what's going on. So when you hear that scene, that's what's happening. She's running around, noise is happening. It's quite intense.
So No One Will Save You is about Brynn, who's a young woman played by Kaitlyn Dever, who has been living a secluded and quiet life, ostracized for mysterious reasons from her local community when things start going bump in the night, and she has to deal with some extraterrestrial shenanigans. One of the things that I really like to do in my work is smash two things that don't go together, and so we talked a lot about, you know, if Todd Haynes was making Far From Heaven and then aliens invaded in the middle of it, you know, what that would feel like and what that movie would be like.
Brynn is such a interesting and complex and strong character. I think Brynn is someone that has been through so much. She lost her mother, which is something that she will never really recover from, but she makes these sort of birdhouse villages. That's something that her and her mom used to do together, and that's, I think, a way of keeping her mom close to her. And she also made this big mistake in her life when she was younger as well, and I think that she is just someone that is doing the best she can to move on and create a life for herself that is the best life that she can have.
When we meet Brynn in the movie, she's done a lot of work on herself to be okay with the cards she's been dealt. And she kind of knows her place in town. She knows that she's this pariah of sorts. And I think having her know that and kind of making peace with that before the movie starts, you know, it was really important to Kaitlyn and I that she's not like a downer of a character, that she's someone that has found herself and found joy in what she thinks her life will amount to. And she's kind of made her peace with that and has kind of built this bubble for herself that she feels safe in. And, you know, a few minutes in the movie, that bubble gets irrevocably shattered and popped. And so that's been part of the fun of it, is finding this character who's kind of done everything she can do to be okay, and then have that all kind of ripped out of her grasp right away, and her trying to figure out how to claw back some kind of semblance of being okay again.
Now you might think, what kind of gimmick is this? No dialogue? Is that what you're trying to sell this movie on? Well, it's so much more than that. Because up next we're going to hear from the director and Kaitlyn Dever, and they talk about this. But especially the director, he doesn't want to have this be the first thing that people say. Because there are levels upon levels in here. Sub-stories, everything that's going on. That just adds to the volume of tension in this film. Because not having dialogue changes the whole feel of the film. And how does a character react? How does a character respond without words? And how do you shoot a film like that? How do you edit it? You have to have sound. You have to have crisp editing. And that's what they do in this film. Even though you don't necessarily see it or hear it necessarily when I play those clips. But you can. The use of audio and lack of audio, that's the key too. It's not just blowing you away with cues of how to react. Sometimes it's just a dead silence. And you're like, oh, sweet. Because we all know anything could happen in silence. And that's the tease, that's the give and take of this film, toying with that sound. And the director talks about that coming up next. And also you're going to hear from Kaitlyn Dever, like I said. And then we're going to have another clip for you. And in this clip, we find Brynn downstairs, pitch black, and she's trying to figure out, what can I do? So she runs to the phone, and then she picks up the phone, and then you hear this shrill, this high piercing sound. She slams down the phone, and then the refrigerator starts opening and closing, and she's just freaking out, just trying to run around, this boom, 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 boom. And she can't see this thing or anything like that. She's just trying to figure out a way to save her butt. And then she finally just kneels down behind part of the kitchen and tries to be quiet.
How do I finish telling the story without, caving in and adding dialogue, which definitely had its own challenges, but was definitely one of the exciting parts about it. And it's exciting because the hope is that, when the movie ends, it's not one of the first things that people bring up. They bring up, Kaitlyn and her character and the kind of adventure that she went on. And, 5 or 6 on the list would be like, oh, there wasn't a lot of chatting in that film. So it's fun to kind of work so hard at something that you're hoping that people forget about.
No dialogue film with one character search. There's not a lot of movies like that, which is so cool that we get to be, creating that kind of movie and doing something that hasn't really been done before is amazing, and it's so special.
Now you might be asking yourself, what would entice an actress to take this kind of role? Coming up next, we're going to hear from Kaitlyn Dever, and she's going to explain to us how she's always been fascinated by studying people and watching them and how we all interact. And then we're going to have another clip for you. And in this clip, we find Brynn. She's down in the basement now, just trying to get away. And she's hunkered down behind a freezer, and then you hear noises outside. And she's like, oh man, what's going on? You can see lights. There's a little window down there, and you can see some lights going back and forth. So then she runs behind a little post, and then this giant boom, blue light comes shining through. It's kind of like a searchlight probably, or it can detect people or movement, whatever it does. And she's just hiding behind this post. But then in the house is also one of the aliens. And you can just hear it. You can hear little sounds, little clicking. And she's just trying to be as quiet as she can.
I've always loved studying people's mannerisms and the way they move and the way that they, and the way that they, I feel like you can really tell a lot by someone just by observation. And I've always been fascinated by that. And I've always really been fascinated by scenes in films that maybe have little to no dialogue. And so to do an entire movie with no dialogue was so exciting to me, because that meant I was able to internalize a lot.
we're going to hear from Kaitlyn again, and she's going to talk a little bit more about working in this kind of genre of film. And then we're going to have another scene for you. And in this scene, we find Brynn. She's back upstairs in the living room, and she has some kind of blanket covering the front door because earlier in the movie, something happens where the front door gets blown off. So she nails up this blanket, and then she's looking at it. All of a sudden, she starts hearing this noise. And then plop, plop, these nails keep getting plucked off the wall and falling on the ground. And she's like, well, this can't be good. And so then she hides behind this little, it's not a wall, it's kind of like let's just say wall. And then another light comes plowing through it with that big sound, whoom. And she's like, oh man. And then some piece of furniture gets whooshed in the air because these things can move, stuff like that. And that's kind of like the scene, the real tension building of cat and mouse, them trying to find her trying to stay away. So that's what's coming up next.
Doing this kind of genres is really like thrilling to do, but also to read and watch. And I'm actually really excited to see this movie just as an audience member, which is really, really cool.
Now, I have no idea because I'm not in that world at all. But I would think making this kind of film where the actors don't say a word, you really have to have great communication between the director and the people in the film because you're doing everything without the words. So you really have to have that tight connection. And up next, we're going to hear about that. We're going to have Kaitlyn talking about working with the director and how close they became working on this film. And then we're going to hear from the director just talking about kind of like just the joy of making films and being a writer and a director, what his expectations are when he's writing and then when he's directing. It's just kind of a really kind of cool story.
Brian Duffield is like one of the best people I've ever met. He is, again, like such a genius. He is so dedicated to this movie. This movie is like his baby. He's obsessed with this movie. He, when I first met him, that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me was just how much he loves this movie and how excited he was to get it made. And I loved collaborating with him. He is the most relaxed and chill person. He was so, he just allowed for everybody to have an opinion, for everybody to work together on the same level. And I think that that's such an important thing to have in a director and a director that you work with. It's you want that kind of special bond, and he immediately felt like my friend immediately, which is great.
I think one of the most fun things about being a writer-director is you write it and you have an expectation for what it will be like, and then as a director you get to assemble the troops, and everyone brings a little something that you didn't expect, and so the movie evolves and changes for me based on how excited I get because of the talented people I get to work with.
And I really want to get this point across to you guys. This is more than just a horror film. There are so many themes involved in this film, from guilt, shame, regret, forgiveness. It's all so much going on in this film that you're like, I can't believe they put all this into an hour-and-a-half film. And that's what's really surprising. They could put so much emotion into this film, and it's so short. But that's fine, though, too, because they don't overdo it. They don't run this thing out. Even though part of your mind, you go, I want to see more. Because I'm not going to lie, the ending of this film just had me going, what? Come on, this is so awesome. Talk to me, explain this to me. And I had to take a deep dive. I just poured down the internet to see what was the meaning behind this, what's the director's interpretation, what was being said. Because you could interpret so many things from this film, and where it goes, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Some of the special effects, some of the action, I would have never anticipated. But where they go in this film with scenes, it's not your typical tropes or typical cliches. Things happen in here that are just like, wow, that's creative, it's original. And I strongly suggest you see this film. Yes, it's scary at points for some people if you don't like horror, but it's not the slash, blood splattering type. It's more of an emotional ride and a journey for a woman going from one spot to another and just coming to terms with everything in her life. And where it goes at the end and how she gets there. It's just awesome. So I truly hope they could put this movie out in the theater someday, or at least release it to DVD World or on demand or whatever it is so the masses can see it. Because I don't truly believe it's going to get the fair representation it's going to get just playing on Hulu. And I'm not knocking Hulu. It's a great service. But not a lot of people have it. It's kind of like the one that doesn't always get talked about. And this movie deserves more. So anybody out there in that world, if sooner you get out on DVD or a streaming service or on demand for everybody to see, you have to see this film, because I'm going to watch it again, probably even a couple more times, because I know I'm going to get more out of it. And it's because it's just so darn original. I know, I'm rambling, guys, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of my mind. I don't know. But the performance by Kaitlyn Dever, the director, just spot on. And just one more final say on that. The title alone says it all. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any way to improve the show, I truly appreciate feedback. I love it when you guys email me at cinemajudge@hotmail.com or leave me messages on YouTube, because I can't grow if I don't know. That's the key. I don't care as long as you tell me what to do, not just say, hey, you're horrible. I know that. But what can I do to improve? Because I want you to listen and keep coming back. Because here's the deal. If you don't know, I'm not here to yell and criticize and cry about Hollywood or this or that. I just want to present you the evidence, the jury, and you make up your own mind. I'm just a judge. I provide you the information. Because everybody has walked a different path. Because any movie is somebody's favorite movie. I want to create a movie oasis. A place where you come and maybe hear about a movie like this that you might not have heard of. Because yes, there's always tentpoles, there's blockbuster films, and those are all great too. Because like I said earlier, any movie is somebody's favorite movie. But you might find that little gem, that movie that you would have never seen, just maybe by listening to these interviews. And I'm not going to tell you to see or not see a movie. I might tell you that I like the movie like I like this one, but I would never say, well, if you don't see this, you're wrong. Because it might not be your type of film, and I get that. This is a place, escape from all the noise. Because we know it's a noisy world out there. Enough people telling us what to do. I just want a place, if you're driving to work, sitting at home, whatever you're doing, just a place where you could sit and hear about a movie. Because we all want the same thing, an enjoyable movie experience. Now, if you guys want to watch this on demand, when it's there, it won't be there right away. But if you're listening to this like a week from now or whatever, you can watch this. If you go to bit.ly/cinemajudge, this and a whole lot of other shows are on demand to watch whenever you want. Maybe after a couple months, sometimes they drop off for, due to the space issues. But it might be there for a few months. So if you're interested in watching the TV version of this, go to there. And here's a hint, in case you don't want to sit there and listen to me yapping, and I totally get that. You don't see or hear me on that TV version at all. It's just the interviews, scenes, and I will have some B-roll. And that stuff's really cool too. It's only like maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but it's really pretty fun. And that might be on YouTube too. It depends on the variables of all that stuff. But eventually this will also be on YouTube. Just look up Cinema Judge. And you could find me on most platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple, whatever it is, YouTube. Go there, listen, But hey, I would love your feedback. That's all I ask. But make it be constructive, of course. I'm on Instagram, The Cinema Judge. I'm on Threads, Pinterest, Tumblr, Hive, Mastodon, TikTok, and also on the Meta universe. If you're ever in the Meta world, go to Horizon Worlds. I'm often there just hanging out with people, talking movies. It's a great place just to chat. A lot of times I'm at Ace of Clubs, this laser tag type thing, but I'm also all over the place. And if you want to talk movies, I'll talk movies with you all night long. Because a lot of times I'm there later at night. So if you see me, walk up to me and just talk movies, TV shows, whatever it is. Because hey, I always like talking movies. And now it's shout out time. This is where I give shout out to everybody who listened to the last episode. You might ask yourself, hey dude, I listened to several episodes back, or why didn't you mention me? That stuff's impossible to track. It's just much easier when I say last episode. But don't think for 1 second I don't do a little dance in my chair every time I see somebody listen to a previous episode, because I love that. To all my listeners from the United States, Germany, you guys are outstanding. You always show up to listen to the show. You're sharing it with people. I am so grateful to you. Germany, same thing with Canada, Vietnam, France, Singapore, Philippines, Minneapolis, Minnesota, San Jose, California, Chicago, Illinois, St. Paul, Minnesota, Brampton, Ontario, Ho Chi Minh, Farmington, Minnesota, Stillwater, Minnesota, Howley, Minnesota, Clovis, New Mexico, Stevenson Ranch, California, Frankfurt AM, Maine, Hess. Last week I said that right because I really tried, so this time I kind of messed it up. But seriously, guys, thank you so much. Manila, Brandenburg, Edina, Minnesota, just to name a few. To every single solitary one of you, thank you so very much for taking time out of your life to listen to this show. It means the world to me. Thanks for listening and thanks for sharing it with your friends. Now, this week's bourbon shout out goes out to Mar E. And she actually made me write it down phonetically. It was MAR-E. And I'm probably not even pronouncing it right, but I have so much fun talking to you. And it's been so long since I've seen you. So when I saw you a few days ago, I'm like, sweet. It was really fun to reconnect and talk. And I really do hope you're doing well. And I am very grateful for you taking time to listen to this show. So to Mar E, cheers. Now, like I said earlier, this is first a TV show. And when I'm doing that, I don't have to worry about talking or anything like that. My happy place is editing the show and cranking tunes. And that's just my happy place. But when I was doing this one, I didn't really listen to one thing in particular. I just kind of put it on random, my little music doohickey thing. So I was all over the place, from 80s music, 70s music, all that kind of stuff. So I really don't even recall all. I mean, I could try to list off everything, but I was just I was so excited to do this episode. And really, it was kind of really short. So it was kind of like one of those quickies. And I was like, oh man, I wish they would have given me more. And unfortunately, they didn't. And hey, I'm just glad they gave me anything, because I really wanted to share this movie with you guys. I look back and I'm like, oh yes, there's some stuff. So them getting me anything, I am just so indebted to, because this movie really, for me, needed to be shared. So I just threw on my music and I just cranked it, and boom, I was off to sweet editing land. But also, every so often, guys, I have a little segment in here called my guilty pleasure, because I'm a king of sappy music and movies. And that's just sometimes my jam. So this week, one of my guilty pleasures was Love is in the Air. I think it's on Netflix. I'm not too sure. But it's just one of those sappy movies. But I loved it. So if you're into that kind of thing, or just want a mindless fun thing, this one's set in Australia. So there's a lot of cool scenery, and a lot of flying moments, because this family owns this flight company. It's really small. And the big company wants to shut them down to save money. So a guy comes from elsewhere to there, and whoa, romance happens. But it's just one of those movies, and I eat them up. So I'm not dishing it at all, because I dig it. But some people like go, no, thank you. But anyway, that's my guilty pleasure for this week, is Love is in the Air. Well, that is it. My drink awaits. I'm thirsty. So cheers to you and to the movies. So until next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.